Viral outbreaks have been topping the news for some time now. In November 2002, a farmer from a small city in China died from what was then an unknown respiratory disease. Later, the medical community would recognize the incident as ground zero in the SARS outbreak. More recently, a new strain of influenza moved from pigs, its natural host, to humans, H1N1. Also known as swine flu, quickly spread around the world. Millions contracted the disease and thousands died. Science and biotechnology provide us with the tools necessary to analyze, understand, and build new vaccines to combat viruses as they emerge. We've chosen you as a new member of the National Laboratory of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics to use science to identify new viral threats and help us stop outbreaks before they occur. Welcome to Mission Biotech. For Newswatch WMDT, I'm Sal Mania.
The thermocycler performs the actual PCR process, heating and cooling your tubes in discrete cycles. Click and drag your PCR tubes into the thermocycler slots. Ideally, arrange the tubes so they're easy for you to read. Close the thermocycler and open the PCR computer. The computer manages the PCR process and displays the results once it is finished. Check your machine settings and then click the Start button. Your PCR results will appear on the screen. The graph and table show which tubes amplified and which tubes did not. The table shows the exact amount of amplification in the CT column.
Several unusually severe cases of mononucleosis have developed among students from 3 local high schools. Mono, often referred to as the kissing disease, is caused by fairly common strains of Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus, and has symptoms such as extended fever, fatigue, and sore throat. However, the current cases have stricken students severely, leading to several hospitalizations. Scientists from the National Laboratory for Biotechnology and Bioinformatics are working to identify the new viral strain. School and health officials worry that without accurate diagnoses, they will be forced to close schools throughout the district. For WMDT, I'm Sal Mania.